Our 100th episode is coming up on March 12th, and we're doing a giveaway.
Yes, and to enter, go ahead on the giveaway post, tag 3 friends who aren't already following us, and then if you want to enter a second time for a bonus entry for this giveaway, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then send us a direct message with your YouTube username so we can keep track and enter you in for that bonus entry.
Yep, for third place, we're going to be giving away a coffee gift card and stickers. For second place, we're going to give away third place prize plus a CC&C mug and t-shirt. And then for first place, we're going to give away all of that plus a pour over machine made by our friend Matthew that has our logo on it and a coffee hangout with me, you, and Tyler. Make sure you go and you enter for this great contest.
Yes, you don't want to miss it.
We'll be announcing the winner on the 100th episode on March 12th.
Do you have a friend who tells you what you need to hear even if you don't want to?
Today, we're going to be looking into the prophet Nathan to see how he spoke what God wanted him to speak to King David, even when it was difficult and probably uncomfortable. That's what we'll be discussing today on Christ, Culture, and Coffee. Hey, welcome to Christ, Culture, and Coffee. We are back with our 4th installment of our Unsung Heroes episodes. So I'm glad to kind of finalize this series today and talk about a really cool guy that doesn't get a lot of play in Scripture.
Yeah, that's right. Nathan's talked about a lot as kind of just like the guy who's on the sidelines with David.
Yeah.
But he's not really given enough recognition for the work that he did, I don't think. And honestly, it's just cool to see his story and see the person that he was in Scripture and the example that he left behind for someone we should imitate.
Yeah, it really is. I appreciate this guy, and hopefully we can give you some cool insights into some things you might not know about him, and then we'll see how we can apply it to our lives. Before we get into that, though, we want to remind you, if you're listening on the podcast, we are now on YouTube. Mm-hmm. You can watch us, right, and see what's going on here in the studio. So we'd appreciate if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also follow us on Instagram, follow us on our Facebook group, Christ, Culture, and Coffee Insiders. We've been having some really good conversations on there with people. So yeah, appreciate all of you that do follow, but tell your friends. We'd love to be able to impact more people with truth.
Yes, that would be great. And then for those of you that are watching on YouTube, you can see in the background we have this sign from our friend Matthew.
Yes.
Yeah, he designed it from SE Collective. He can do personal designs for you. He lives in the Phoenix area. If you want to look up his Instagram account, it's on SE Collective without an E, and you can look at all of his pictures and see the stuff he's done. He's done a great job.
Yeah, highly recommend you go check out what he's doing. All right, well, coffee tip for today, because this is Christ, Culture, and Coffee. We always like to give coffee tips, and this is about coffee accompaniment.
Interesting.
Are you ready, Tyler? I'm going to coffee shops a lot, obviously a lot, and I'm seeing this new thing that everybody's raving about.
Yeah, right.
It's called, and maybe you've seen it, it's called oat milk. Have you checked this out yet?
Oat milk. You know, I've heard of almond milk. I get almond milk pretty often.
It's amazing how they milk those almonds. It's like
I know.
You gotta have tiny hands.
It's got to be so hard because the nipples on the almonds have just got to be so small.
Got to be really small.
Yeah, it's like
utterly ridiculous.
It's utter.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it is. So anyway, oat milk, what is it? Well, it's a lot processed like almond milk, actually. Okay. And they don't actually milk almonds, for those of you out there Googling, how does that work? What they do with almond milk is they'll blend up almonds and they soak them in water.
Yeah.
And then what gets extracted in the water, they call that almond milk. Same process with oat milk. They take steel-cut oats, oatmeal, basically, and they soak it in water. And then they pass the water through a cheesecloth, or actually they have a nut milk cloth that you pass it through. So it traps all of the particles of the nuts or of the oats, and then you get the liquid that comes through. So that is what oat milk is. And people are saying they like it better than almond milk because it's creamier. And the reason is that oats absorb, this only makes sense, oats absorb water easier than nuts do.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So oat milk is a little bit creamier because it extracts a little bit more out of the oats than almonds would be extracted. So I highly recommend trying it. I tried it and it tastes pretty good.
Yeah, especially if maybe you're lactose intolerant and you need a substitute. Yeah, that might be a little better.
It's a very good dairy substitute. So
right.
I know some people who just like the taste too, right? Because you got that grainy oatmeal
Yeah,
type taste.
yeah,
It's kind
that's
of
right.
nice sometimes. So yeah, it adds a new dimension to your coffee with whatever you're drinking, your latte or whatever. But recommend you trying out oat milk. Let us know what you think about it. And if you have a brand that you specifically like, that's really good. Let us
Yeah.
know, and maybe we'll try it on the air or something.
Yeah,
So,
because I know a lot of coffee shops. I've been seeing it around. I mean,
Yeah.
like even at Starbucks, they've got this oat milk as a supplement for the
Yeah.
drinks, and so I guess it's kind of becoming a thing.
no, it is becoming a thing. So yeah,
Yeah, so that's the coffee tip for today.
try some oat milk. Tell us what you think. Yeah, that'd
Yeah.
be great.
Yeah, let us know because I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah,
And
you should try it.
I'm a little nervous about it. I like my almond milk.
Almond milk's fine, man, but I think oat milk's a little bit better. So,
Okay,
anyway,
okay.
check it out.
I'll take your word on that.
All right, so there's your coffee tip for the day. Now, let's get into talking about our last unsung hero, Nathan.
Yeah.
This is a really interesting character to me. So we find Nathan the prophet mentioned a few times in the Old Testament, and we're going to focus on three main stories where we find him being mentioned. These are kind of the three big things that he did. Now, there is a total of 11 individuals named Nathan in the Old Testament. So you don't want to conflate them. They're not all the same person. We're talking about the specific Nathan the prophet. We learned that he was the prophet to King David and to King Solomon.
Yes, that's right.
So this is the time period that he lived in, right? During Saul, David, and Solomon's reigns in Israel.
Yeah, and something that's interesting, kind of a reoccurring theme that we're seeing with a lot of these unsung heroes is they all have something unique about their name. And what's cool about Nathan's name is that the name Nathan literally means he gave, meaning God gave, or a gift of God. Those are the
Yeah.
two different interpretations of that name. And so that's really interesting. It's a reoccurring theme that we've been seeing through these unsung heroes is they all have something unique about their name, right?
Yes, yeah, it's true. Yeah, gift of God is a really good. That I'd like to have that name. That'd be nice.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Any of these, honestly, that we've been going over. It's
It's pretty cool. So we learn a couple of things. Nathan's obviously a prophet, an advisor to kings, but we also learned that he was a writer. I think this is really interesting, and this is kind of a side note. These aren't the major
Sure.
stories about him. But in 1 Chronicles 29 through 30, it says this. Now the acts of King David, from first to last, are written in the Chronicles of Samuel the seer, in the Chronicles of Nathan the prophet, and in the Chronicles of Gad the seer, with all his reign, his power, and the circumstances which came on him, on Israel, and all the kingdoms of the land. So we know that Nathan wrote down Chronicles of Nathan the prophet that talked about some of the exploits and things that went on with King David.
That's right.
So that's mentioned in 1 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles 9:29 mentions a similar thing about Nathan writing down stuff that was happening in Solomon's day and age. So he was a chronicler. He was a writer of events of history during the time. Now we don't have those writings. But
Yeah, that's
Chronicles tells us that Nathan did write history down for
Yeah,
Israel.
yeah,
which
and so that's
interesting, right?
It's an interesting backstory, knowing about who he is, what he did, and it's perfect, I think, to kick off the start of this episode, just getting an idea of who we're talking about here.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. So, first big account we want to talk about is when David finally becomes the king and he's living in Jerusalem and things are going well for him. We come to this account in 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 1 through 17. And we want to summarize this part of it. Basically, David is sitting in his amazing palace and he's looking at the tabernacle where the Holy of Holies is.
Yeah.
And he goes, this isn't right that I'm in like this really nice house and God's still in a tent. I need to build a house for the Lord. I need to build a temple to God, not just this tent we can keep taking down and putting up, right?
Right, right.
And what happens at first, Nathan says, do all that's in your heart. AKA,
Right.
Great idea, man. Like
go
that
ahead.
sounds awesome.
Go for it.
Yeah,
That's what he's telling him.
Go
That's
for
right.
it. That's a great idea. Of course we'd build a house for the Lord.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want that, right? But then we have something that happens.
That's right.
God shows up to Nathan and he says, actually, I don't want David to build a house for me.
Right.
Ooh, like imagine being in that site. Like, that sounds great, bro. I'm an
Yeah.
advisor to the king. And then God says, no, actually go tell him not to do that. I don't want to tell the king not to do that. Right? That's a tough position to be in.
But that's the thing that's cool about King David. He was just such a good king that he had this relationship with Nathan where he could take the criticism like that and then understand, like, no, this is from God. This is the Lord's will.
I'm going to do what God tells me to do.
Yeah. And that was good. And we see that he does that. He waits. He says, okay, I'm not gonna build the temple.
Yep. And so Nathan comes to David. And this is what the Lord told Nathan to tell David. So this is in 2 Samuel 7, verse 12.
Yes.
It says, when your days are complete and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your descendant after you, who will come forth from you. And I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. So God is telling Nathan to tell David, hey, tell him that his son's going to build the temple for me, and I'll establish his kingdom, right?
Yeah.
And this is what actually happens in history. Solomon comes along and builds a temple for the Lord. Now, do you know the reason why David wasn't allowed to build a temple?
They were waiting.
They were waiting, yeah. They were waiting until Solomon came along, but it was because David was a man of war, remember?
Yes,
it says that
that's right.
you've killed too many people. You're not like in a place of holiness to be able to build my temple.
Yeah, in which hearing that, you got to think, that's got to be offensive a bit.
A little bit. Like, it'd be a letdown for sure, right?
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, because hearing that, like I'm thinking of being in, if you were in David's shoes and you're thinking, okay, I've got this great inspiration to build a temple because our God is great, which he is, and he deserves a permanent place of worship, not just this temporary tent that we're pitching up and down, like moving around.
Which is a good thing you want to do.
Yeah, it's good.
Very good thing.
David had a good heart behind this. He had a good motivation, right? But the thing is that wasn't his thing. He was a warrior, right? He was a warrior king, and so that's why he said, "No, you need to wait because that's just not your calling."
Yep, that's not what I have for you. And so Nathan comes and tells him this, and then an interesting thing too that happens at the end of this story, 2 Samuel 7:16. God tells Nathan to also tell David this. Your house and your kingdom shall endure before me forever. Your throne shall be established forever. And this is what's called the Davidic covenant. This is where God is promising David that a king will come from him who will reign forever. And that king is Jesus, right? That king is related to David, and Jesus was the promised Messiah who would be the king who will rule in Jerusalem forever and ever. So really cool that Nathan was faithful to go and talk to David, even though this is something that he probably didn't want to hear, right?
Yeah, it's true. It's just, and that's something that's already off the bat something that we should look at as somebody who we should try to imitate, because what's cool is he's setting this example of being bold about what God's word says and telling his friend what he needs to hear, even if it may come across as like uncomfortable or be a little difficult, because he's a king. Like that's a big deal.
And kings like to build stuff.
They do.
Like that's the thing. Like, I want to leave a legacy. I want to do something.
You look at kings from all different cultures. You see they want to build permanent things, like in ancient history, especially because that was the only way you could leave your mark.
In Israel, sure.
Yeah, and because the thing is, they want to leave like the Egyptian kings, right? With the different dynasties, they want to leave behind art and statues and like big monuments to reflect their dynasty.
Yeah, to show how powerful and how mighty they were.
Yeah, and so we see that as a repeat thing. So of course, this is something that makes sense. It's like David would want to do it. And you know, again though, there's nothing wrong with his motivation behind it. He had a good heart.
Not at all, yeah.
That's the thing that's important to note here. This wasn't like a sinful, bad thing that he was building.
It just wasn't what God had for him.
Right.
And so what I appreciate about Nathan in this is that he really cared about David and he really loved the Lord.
Right.
And he was a good friend to David. And a good friend will tell you what God's word says, even when you know it's not what they want to hear.
Right.
And I think that with apologetics, this applies to us, is we don't want to tell people what they want to hear. We want to tell them what's real. Right? We want to tell them God's word. We want to speak God's truth to them, even if it's going to hurt their feeling, even if it's offensive. And now, again, we say this all the time. You know, 1 Peter 3:15 is where we need to give an apologia, a defense, but we need to do it with gentleness and respect. So we're not offensive in giving our defense, right? We're not overly jerks about it. But we still need to stand up for truth, because really loving somebody means speaking the truth to them. There's that old analogy, right, about cancer. If you had cancer, would you want a doctor to tell you you had it, or would you want him to tell you, don't worry, everything's going to be fine?
Yeah.
You want to know what's real.
You do.
Whether you have it or not, and you need to deal with it.
If you don't, you should.
Yeah,
That's
you
the thing,
should.
yeah.
Even if it's going to make you feel bad, you have to deal with reality. And so that's one of the things that we see here with Nathan is he loves God enough, and he loves David enough to tell David what God said, even when he knew it wasn't something David would want to hear.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that's huge for us as apologists. This is something we can learn from Nathan and how he dealt with David. Now, a couple other things. Nathan doesn't shy away from saying what God's word was, even if it might have offended David. But because he was faithful to do this, the Davidic covenant gets established about having a ruler forever, which is just
true.
awesome, right?
Yeah.
This is like a big deal, because if you remember, God came to Abraham to establish a covenant, right? God spoke to Noah to establish a covenant that he wouldn't flood the world again, right? But this time, God doesn't speak specifically to David about the covenant. Nathan gets to be the mouthpiece, which is really an honor.
There's someone in between here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's cool. You just see like Nathan just gets really blessed by going through with this. Not just through what the Lord does, but just the way with the falling through the Davidic covenant. But on top of that, you just see him and David's relationship and the trust that's there just gets built.
Yep.
And and then God just keeps piling on things after that with Nathan and his life and affecting him. And it's just cool. And we'll get to that. So
yeah, it is really neat to see.
Right.
So that's the first big story of Nathan doing what God has called him to do. Even when it means telling the most powerful person in your country, you shouldn't do that, which I think is fascinating, right?
Yeah, right.
Now, the second big story comes from 2 Samuel chapter 12. Now, the history of what's gone on here and the setup to this is, if you're familiar with David's story, there was a huge, huge mistake that he made where he completely disobeyed God and did some horrendous, horrendous evils. We're talking about Bathsheba, right?
Yeah.
So this is the general story of David and Bathsheba. He's in his house. He's lying on his bed during the middle of the day, which means he's taking it easy, right?
Yeah.
And the passage starts off and it says, when kings are supposed to go to war in the springtime, David was at home lounging. That's the idea. He's not where he's supposed to be. But all his men are.
So that's already the first issue.
Yeah.
He should have been out at war.
He should have been out at war. All his men are, but he's taking it easy. And then he goes up on the roof and sees this woman bathing. He sends his men and says, hey, who is she? They say, she's the wife of your servant Uriah. Uriah had been one of his trusted guys going way back. He sends for her. His men bring her to him. He sleeps with her and sends her back home. What happens is she sends word to him and says, hey, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
By you. And my husband's been out at war for a long time, so he's not going to think it's his.
Yeah, and obviously she knew it was through him because her husband was at war.
had been gone.
So, and then that's just the only way she could be pregnant. So it's
huge crisis. So instead of David admitting that he did something horrible and asking forgiveness, he tries to cover up, right? And kings have the power to cover up. So he sends for Uriah. Uriah comes back. Think about this. From fighting David's war, Uriah comes back, and David says, you're doing so much. Hey, man, this is really great. Come on in. Let's have a party. He gets him a bunch of wine. And then he says, why don't you go home and hang out with your wife? Yeah. And Uriah goes home, and he sleeps outside because he says, how can I go and enjoy sex with my wife when my friends are all out fighting? That's not something I should do. I'm an honorable soldier.
Which that alone too. That had to be like a dagger into David's side.
He's more honorable than King David was. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so he won't go and sleep with her. So David's plan is ruined. So when he knows that this is the case, David writes a letter. Think about this. He writes a letter to the commanding officer saying, hey, listen, when Uriah gets there, I want you to go to the front of the lines to fight. And once you're up front, pull all of the guys back except for Uriah and let the enemy kill him. Yeah. He writes this letter, seals it, and gives it to Uriah to deliver to the general. So Uriah is carrying his death sentence to the general, but he doesn't know what it says, right? He gets there, he gives it to them. This is what happens. Uriah gets killed. David sets up a plot to have Uriah murdered, right? Yeah. To have him killed. So this is the scenario. Then David takes Bathsheba as his wife with all of his other wives, moves in, she's pregnant. David doesn't think anything of it, doesn't really care. Then we get to this with Nathan, and this is something I'm like, man, Lord, I don't know if I could go through with what you asked Nathan to do.
Yeah.
This guy really obeys the Lord. So 2 Samuel 12, the story goes through verses 1 through 25, but we're just going to read some selections of it. Do you want to read that, Tyler?
Sure. From starting at verse 1 going through 25, it says, "And the Lord sent Nathan to David, and he came to him and said, there were two men in one city, the one rich and the other poor. There were two men. The rich man had a great many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing except one little lamb, which he bought and nourished. And then it grew up together with him and his children. It would eat his bread and drink his cup and lie in his bosom. And it was like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to the rich man, and he was unwilling to take away from his flock to his own herd to prepare for the wayfarer who came to him. Rather, he took the poor man's lamb and prepared it for the man who would come to him. Then David's anger burned greatly against the man, and he said to Nathan, "As the Lord lives, surely the man who has done this deserves to die. He must make restitution for the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing and had no compassion."
All right, let's stop right there. So here's the story, right? The Bathsheba thing happens. Nathan gets sent by the Lord to David, and he says, David, I want to tell you a story. There's a rich guy. He's got all of these lambs, flocks. Right. Then there's this one poor guy, and all he had was one little lamb, and he loved it, and he cherished it, and it was a family pet. It wasn't livestock. It was a family pet. They took it in their house, let it sleep in their bed, held it on its bosom, loved it like a daughter. And then a traveler came, and the rich guy was unwilling to give from all of the tons of sheep he had, and he went and he stole the one thing this poor guy had.
Yeah, that really gives you this whole picture of the story. Like, it makes him out to be like a really bad guy. It's like, oh, this is terrible.
Yeah, this is terrible. And so remember what David did before he became a king?
Yeah.
What was he? A shepherd. That's right. He was a shepherd.
Mm-hmm.
So sheep were a thing to David. Like, he has familiarity with this.
Yeah, there was a lot of personal ways that David related to this story because he was a shepherd himself. And he probably even had his own personal favorite that he kept as like a pet or and he cared for it. He understands how there would be a shepherd that would have a sheep that's special to them that you nourish.
Yeah, so he's probably thinking about, I remember when I was a kid and I had my pet, whatever.
Right.
And how could you do that? Like, that's a horrible thing to do when you have so much. Mm-hmm. You're unwilling, and so you steal the other guy's one thing. And I love what it says. David burned with anger about this. That's unjust. That's so not right. That guy has got to pay back fourfold what he took. Because it's not just about the lamb; it's about the relationship that this guy had, right, with his pet, and the emotions behind it. So I love that. So David, he doesn't know he's walking into a trap.
Yeah, he doesn't realize. He thinks that this is a real story.
Yeah,
that this is something that has actually happened, and Nathan's reporting it to him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so he gets mad. Restitution must be made. So from David's lips, he's condemning the guy who did this.
Yeah.
And then what does verse 7 say, Tyler?
Yeah, and then Nathan said to David, "You are the man. Thus says the Lord God of Israel, it is I who anointed you king over Israel, and it is I who delivered you from the hand of Saul." And then in verse 8 it says, "I also gave you your master's house and your master's wives into your care, and I gave you the house of Israel and Judah. And if that had been too little, I would have added to you many more things of these. Why have you despised the word of God by doing evil in his sight? You have struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword, have taken his wife to be your wife, and have killed him with the sword the sons of Ammon. And now, therefore, the sword shall never depart from your house, because you have despised me and have taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife."
Yep. So there we go.
Right.
This and now again, I want you to put yourself in Nathan's shoes. God comes to him and says, "Listen, you know what David did with Bathsheba. you got to go confront him on
Yeah.
it. I don't know if I'd really feel comfortable. Think about this.
Yeah.
He just had a dude killed because he wanted to steal his wife. And you're telling me to go tell him you're wrong?
Yeah.
I don't want to get killed. Like, I'd be a little freaked out about that, right?
Yeah.
This is an
That's right.
intimidating. Like, we know the story, so we know how it ends. But think about Nathan. Like, he just had a dude killed. David's losing his mind. He's obviously not thinking correctly about life. But he goes anyway, tells him a story, and then David gets mad and he says, "That's you. You're the man. You're the guy who stole. You're the guy who did evil inside the Lord. You have all these wives. You have all of this, and you stole one guy's thing, and then you killed him."
Yeah, and that's the whole idea here. As
Yeah.
we're looking at it, we see that, like, obviously, and that's what God was saying through Nathan, is that basically David had a lot. He had a lot of wives.
Yep.
Right, and that he had tons of wealth. He was king.
Yep.
And then not only that, God said that, look, if you were not satisfied with what I gave you, I would have given you more. That's interesting to think about,
But
right?
you went out and stole.
Yeah, but he went out and stole. But like, even just thinking about that one point alone, it's like, if this was not enough for you, I could have given you more.
Yep.
Like he just wanted David to be honorable about this. But the thing is, he wasn't. He had to take what wasn't his and then commit multiple sins to cover it up.
Yep. And then the flip side of it, because a lot of people will say, well, what is with this polygamy thing in the Old Testament? It seems like God's fine with it. Well, he's not.
That's true.
In Deuteronomy, which was the book that kings were supposed to rule from, it tells us in Deuteronomy that the kings, when they came into being the ruler, were supposed to hand copy the whole book of Deuteronomy. And that was what they were supposed to rule out of. In the book of Deuteronomy, it tells kings not to amass gold, not to trade horses with Egypt, and not to have multiple wives. And they all completely disobeyed that. So God isn't for polygamy. He's against it.
Yeah.
So think about this. Uriah is doing the right thing. He has one wife, right? Uriah
Yeah,
is doing
true.
the honorable thing. He's out fighting. Uriah obeyed the commands of God's anointed king.
Yeah.
Even delivering his death sentence to the general, right? Okay, so that's what Uriah's doing. David's back here as the king of Israel, who's supposed to uphold the law of God.
Yes.
And with this Uriah thing, he basically breaks all the 10 commandments in one act.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, of course, David's already sinning. I mean, it's not like saying that, like, he was perfect up until this point. He wasn't.
No.
That's the
of course
thing. And
not.
so something to be aware about is, like, the severity of this specific issue over him having multiple wives was that, like, just how completely dirty and despicable this was.
Yeah.
Like just being real, like yes, it's horrible, like, and bad that he had multiple wives, but then when you see he not only had a ton of wives, he kind of went out of his way, stole someone else's wife, and then killed them, and then covered it up. That's a number of issues, and it just kind of like
number of issues. Well, like, let's list them.
Yeah.
Okay, number 1, adultery.
Right.
Number 2, I mean, literally, don't covet your neighbor's wife.
Yeah.
Did. Adultery. Covet your neighbor's wife. Lied about it. Don't bear false witness, right?
Yeah, that's right.
What else? Don't murder. Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, that was on his hands.
Right? The other thing is he's supposed to be the law.
Yeah.
And he's using his power, because you couldn't have done this unless you were the king. You couldn't have sent men to arrange this situation for you.
And I'm sure the general was probably like looking at this and he's like, why?
Doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he
doing?
has to obey.
So now the national military has become a cover-up operation for the lusts of the king.
Yeah.
Right? He's totally abusing all of the power that God's given him. He's setting up false idols, right? Before he wants to do something that's deplorable against God. On and on and on. He is not doing the correct thing.
Yeah, and so
so Nathan comes to him and just confronts it.
Right.
It's crazy to me. And now there's a few curses, I guess, a few consequences that come because of what David did, right? God tells David, number 1, the sword will never depart from your house, right? And this refers to internal strife among the royal family, which we see happen.
Yes.
David's son Amnon rapes his half-sister Tamar, and then Absalom, who is Tamar's full brother, kills Amnon, because David didn't do anything about this situation. Because how could he? He had no credibility because he raped Bathsheba.
Yeah.
So what is he going to tell Amnon? Like, you shouldn't have done that. Why, Dad?
Yeah.
You did it. right? He brought just dysfunction into his family. And then Absalom thinks his dad is a horrible leader, so he tries to usurp his dad's authority, which you can kind of see, he was a pretty bad leader with his family. Like he was, right?
Yeah.
He was doing these horrible things. So number one, the sword will never depart from your house. God, through Nathan, tells David that all of his wives will be given to evil that arises from his own household, and that a person will lie with him in broad daylight, not in secret. Absalom does this.
Yeah, and that's another thing, though, too, we see in the New Testament in qualifications for leaders or preachers and stuff, like having your family
in
order. That's an important thing.
It really
that's something
is.
that's really talked about a lot, and
to be a good leader.
And David didn't do that.
He didn't.
So, and
then the third consequence is that the child that he conceived with Bathsheba was going to die, and then did die, right?
Right.
A couple of things about Nathan. He was a good friend to David because he set aside, again, his own comfort, I'm sure, and he went and he confronted his friend when he was in sin. Right?
Yeah,
this would take
right.
a ton of courage to confront a king who just had a dude killed.
Yeah.
I think that's crazy, right? Now, another aspect I think is really important, Tyler, is this aspect of the power of story. Think about the technique that Nathan used. He didn't just go in guns a-blazing and yell at David's face, "You're the man," right? Mm-hmm. He taught him what he wanted him to understand through telling a story.
Yeah.
About a lamb and about a guy with a bunch, right? And this is a huge point for us as apologists.
Yeah.
The power of story, using stuff that's important to the person you're talking to so that they grasp what you're saying, because there's emotion that gets tied to it.
That's
there's
right.
background that gets tied to it. This was awesome. And so I think that we can learn a lot from the power of story and how Nathan confronted David.
Yeah, and with that, I know plenty of different sermon illustrations and stuff that we see today of pastors who use the power of story in their message to get a point across. And personally, I took a trip to Japan a few years ago, and what had happened was during that week when I was out there, I was given an opportunity one night to speak to a group of non-Christians who were there. I had a translator with me, so they were able to speak, but I had 30 minutes. And so I was thinking, I'm like, how can I integrate what's happening right now in the culture into getting their attention and helping them to understand the gospel? And coincidentally, while we were out there, there was this fireworks festival that was going on. And so what I did in turn, I created a sermon illustration to share the gospel with them based on fireworks. So one year on 4th of July, me and some of my high school buddies ended up getting in a fight with Roman candles, which is super dangerous. I don't recommend it.
Yeah, that's terrible, dude. That's a really dangerous thing.
Yeah, but we had tons of fun. And it made a great story, obviously. So, but what we ended up doing, we were shooting the firework Roman candles at each other, attacking each other and stuff, and just messing around. And then one of the fireballs had hit a palm tree and bounced off of it. And we thought, oh, shoot, it's going to catch on fire. This isn't going to be good. Like, we need to be careful. And so then in turn, what had happened was we ended up just saying, okay, well, should we stop? Should we be careful now that we see the warning sign? We said, no, you know what? Let's just keep going. So we keep firing back and forth at each other, and then a palm tree catches on fire.
Oh, man.
And we
That's
scurried,
terrible.
and we thankfully, after about probably 20, 30 minutes of splashing buckets of water on it, running from my friend's house back and forth with water, we finally put it out. But then how I turned that around, I said to them, we were ignoring the warning signs that were placed before us about the fireworks. Are you ignoring the warning signs you're seeing about your eternal salvation? And
interesting.
And then through doing that, there was this response. You could see them almost like I can look into the crowd and of the people there, and I could see in their faces that they started to get it. And the reason why is because stories resonate with people.
Yes.
That's the whole idea of this. And Nathan, he knew that. And and we see later Jesus does that too.
Jesus does it all the time, telling parables and stories.
Yeah. And so the power of story is really important when we're sharing with people, even in the use of apologetics.
Absolutely.
Trying to help people to understand. Because see, I didn't go in and tell them, hey, you are ignoring the warning signs. You don't understand that salvation is important, which some people take that approach.
Yeah, they do. They just go in guns blazing. It's much better. Story conveys truth really well. And people get it. We're made for story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why people like movies so much. That's why people like reading story. Like, this is who we are. And I think it's phenomenal that was the method Nathan took to confront David on the most heinous thing he ever did.
Yes, that's right.
David, I want to tell you a story. It's very interesting, right?
Yeah, and that's something that we should be doing, right?
Yes.
I think that, again, this just keeps building on the person of Nathan. We should be imitating him.
Yep,
because this is the method he took to being a loving accountability partner to David, his friend.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's fascinating. I love looking at the courage, the boldness, the obedience of Nathan.
Yeah. A good friend will confront you when you're in sin.
He will.
That's something to be aware of. And that's something that you should do. You should confront your friends when you see them in sin, but do so in a loving and gracious manner, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Well, hey, we want to take a little break from the content right now to talk about our friend Matthew at SE Collective. Again, he made this awesome sign that if you're on YouTube checking out, you see behind us. And I just want to tell you a little bit about his industry. There is something special about handcrafted furniture and decor that adds warmth and quality to your home. Something factory-made furniture just can't compete with. SE Collective Design provides beautiful, custom-designed and built pieces within Greater Phoenix, Arizona. Each creation is a work of art crafted just for you, using wood, metal, or a unique combination to truly meet any design needs that you have. Everything from signs to dining tables, they have the tools and the know-how to create one-of-a-kind furnishings. For more information and to see some of their amazing work, be sure to follow them on Instagram and Facebook or visit their website at secollective.com. That's SECOLLECTIV.com. SE Collective, no E on the end of collective.com.
Perfect.
Yeah, please check out Matthew. Give him some love. Tell him you like what he's doing. And if you have any needs for some cool signs, some furniture, he is your go-to person for that.
Yes, that's right. He does a great job.
Yep. All right, well, back into talking about Nathan. The third occasion where we see him very involved in what's going on in Israel comes from the book of 1 Kings. All right, so this is in 1 Kings 1, 11 through 39, and I'm going to read a few of these verses. We're not going to read the whole thing, but I'll start in 1 Kings 1, 11. It says, Then Nathan spoke to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, saying, Have you not heard that Adonijah, the son of Haggith, has become king, and David our Lord does not know it? So now come, please, let me give you counsel, and save your life and the life of your son Solomon. Go at once to King David. Say to him, Have you not, my lord, O king, sworn to your maidservant, saying, Surely Solomon your son will be king after me, and he shall sit on my throne? Why then has Adonijah become the king? Behold, while you are still there speaking with the king, I will come in after you, and I'll confirm your words. So Bathsheba went to the king in their bedroom. Now the king was very old, and Abishag the Shunammite was ministering to the king. Then Bathsheba bowed and prostrated herself before the king, and the king said, What do you wish? She said to him, My lord, you swore to your maidservant by the Lord your God, saying, Surely your son Solomon will be king after me and shall sit on my throne. Now behold, Adonijah is king, and now my lord the king, you do not know it. Right? Okay, so David hears about this. Then Bathsheba continues to explain what Adonijah is doing, how he's sacrificing, he's usurping his dad. This isn't the first time this has happened, by the way. But David had promised that Solomon, the son of Bathsheba, would become king. Bathsheba and David had Solomon after their first child had died. The child that was conceived in adultery died.
Yeah, right.
This was another child that they had, Solomon. So she explains to David what's going on, and then we're going to fast forward down to verse 32 through 37. It says, Then King David said, Call to me Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, and Benaiah the son of Jehoiada. And they came into the king's presence. The king said to them, Take with you the servants of your lord, and have my son Solomon ride on my own mule and bring him down to Gihon. Let Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anoint him there as king over Israel, and blow the trumpet, and say, Long live King Solomon. Then you shall come up after him, and he shall come and sit on my throne and be king in my place, because I have appointed him to be ruler over Israel and Judah. Benaiah the son of Jehoiada answered the king and said, Amen. Thus may the Lord, the God of my lord the king, say, as the Lord has been with my lord the king, so may he be with Solomon, and make his throne greater than the throne of my lord King David. So Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and the Cherethites and the Pelethites went down and had Solomon ride on King David's mule and brought him to Gihon. Zadok the priest then took the horn of oil from the tent and anointed Solomon. Then they blew the trumpet, and all the people said, Long live King Solomon.
Right.
This is cool.
Yeah.
Right? So this is, now think about it. This whole scenario starts because Nathan instigates it.
That's right.
He goes to Bathsheba
Yeah.
and says, here's what we need to do. David has no idea what's happening out there.
and-
He's on his deathbed.
That's right.
Let's get this sorted out.
Yeah, and if he didn't do that, this might never have happened.
It is
Probably-
really interesting to think about, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it might never have happened.
I mean, it could have. It could have. But the thing is seeing Nathan is the one who was willing to do what God told him to, which eventually
Yes.
led to these events taking place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nathan, as a good friend, served the family of his friend. Right? He served the family of his friend. Nathan wouldn't sit by and let this coup take place because he knew that David had promised that Solomon would be king, right? Bathsheba's son, Solomon, would become a king. So there's a couple of things here. One is that a friend serves the family
Yes.
of their friends, but also that a friend knows what their friends desire. Nathan knew what David wanted.
He did.
Right? So he says, listen, he's sick and feeble and he doesn't know. I'm going to step in and I'm going to help accomplish what my friend wanted.
Yes.
It's awesome to see that, right? So Nathan knew that Solomon was supposed to be the next king, and he instigates it to get it happening. He says, Bathsheba, go tell David what's happening.
Yeah, and the thing is, like this wasn't a thing of necessarily of David doing something wrong. He didn't know what was going on.
No, he had no idea.
He had
what
no
was
idea.
happening.
And what's cool is he's not just a friend that goes there and like holds David accountable when he messes up. He helps him out, right? Because that's the thing. David didn't know this was going on. He had to go and he had to talk to him.
Yep.
So that's cool. And that's the other thing. He's also put in another place, like probably an uncomfortable position because he's getting himself mixed into this family drama
Yes.
over who the king is going to be.
Yep.
And so that's going to put a lot of pressure on him. And then who knows, like, I mean, just being honest, like what if it turned out that it didn't work, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the king who was still on the throne ends up getting upset at Nathan for trying to dethrone him.
Yeah.
And that he could have been executed. I mean, I don't know.
It's true.
Like, it doesn't
he was
necessarily-
putting his neck on the line for
That's what I'm
this.
saying. Like,
Yeah.
like he's putting a lot on the line. And that's something to see that he cares enough about God's will and he cares enough about David to take care of him in that way.
Even when David had screwed up royally.
Yeah.
Even when David was, I mean, again, he forgave him too, right? He kept walking with him.
Yeah.
He kept doing, because Nathan knew the Davidic covenant. He's the one who told it to David.
That's true. Yeah.
So it's just fascinating to think about all that he did to serve David and Solomon and their dynasty.
Yes. So Nathan just did such a great job at being there for them. And it's
he did.
It's crazy to see the impact that he made.
It is. Well, and then you think about his name again, right?
Yeah.
His name means gift of God.
Yeah.
Man, this guy really was a gift in a lot of ways. I mean, even think about like the gift he was to Bathsheba. He didn't stand by idly when this woman was victimized by a power-hungry king.
That's right.
He stepped in and said, "You're wrong." He in a sense. Now again, you think about Bathsheba losing her husband, right? Being raped by the king, then losing a child. Like she went through horrendous things because David wanted to fulfill his lusts.
Yeah.
And Nathan was the guy who stood by her. Nathan's the guy who came and said, this isn't right. You can't do this to people. I'm sure she was completely comforted by him. And then he comes along with her again and says, listen, David promised your son, you're going to have a dynasty through you, right?
Yes.
The king is going to sit on the throne, and we're going to make this happen. We're not going to let some other kid usurp this.
Yeah, it's just cool.
I mean,
He
he
gives her the
supported
comfort of that and
Bathsheba.
says, like, because she went through a lot. That's
What a
like,
gift to her. What a gift to Solomon. What a gift to David. And to be honest, what a gift to us, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Because through this promise, Jesus came. Jesus is a descendant of David who will sit on the throne forever and ever. So the question that we have is, are you a gift of God to people in your life? How can we emulate Nathan in our apologetic, in our evangelism, speaking truth to people even when it's something they don't want to hear, but being loving and kind enough to continue a relationship with them?
Yeah, but
right?
imagine if Nathan didn't do any of this, right? I'm just saying, like, I mean, yeah, God could have sent some other person in or something to take care of this. But the thing is Nathan chose to follow through in the calling God gave him. And because he was faithful to that, he went ahead and he stayed true to being there for David in the good times and the bad.
Yes.
And through that, he was blessed by, and honestly, the rest of Christianity was affected by it. And the history of the church and the lineage of Jesus was all affected by this.
Yep.
And that's just great. It's a great thing. And it's something to think about. Like, how are you able to affect someone's history, right? How can you, like, but by sharing truth into people's lives, change them for the Lord and give them, tell them things that they need to hear, but might not necessarily want to hear.
Yeah.
Like, because that's just something that is so important. And Nathan saw the importance of that in David, and he was faithful to God to share that.
Yep. Now, I think there's one other interesting aspect to this
Yes.
about Nathan. So David obviously had a lot of kids, right? But he had multiple children with Bathsheba, Solomon being one of them.
Right.
But he had others. And I want to read a passage from 2 Samuel 5:14 through 16. It says, "Now these are the names of those who were born to David in Jerusalem: Shammua, Shobab, Nathan, Solomon, Ibhar, Elishu, Nepheg, Japhia, Elishama, Eliada, and Eliphalet." 1 Chronicles 3:5 kind of says something similar. It says, "These were born to him in Jerusalem: Shemaiah, Shobab, Nathan, and Solomon, 4 by Bathsheba, the daughter of Amiel." Now, okay, so think about this. Bathsheba and David name one of their kids Nathan.
They did.
Isn't that awesome? They respected this guy who called David out, this guy who told him, do not build the temple.
Yes.
Who are you? Who do you think you are? You're the man who stole this other guy's thing.
They clearly named their child after him.
They named their child after him because Bathsheba knew he was supportive of him. David knew that he cared about him and spoke for the Lord on his behalf. And so they honored the prophet Nathan by naming one of their children after him. I think that is just awesome.
Yes, and then just like the cherry on top of all that is that for God to fulfill the Davidic covenant and then pass on the lineage of the Messiah coming through David's bloodline, Jesus came through the lineage of Nathan.
Nathan, David's son.
Not any of other David's sons. It's through Nathan.
Yeah, Luke 3:31 gives us the lineage of Jesus through his mother Mary. So this is his physical lineage in the Gospel of Luke. And Nathan, David's son by Bathsheba, is who Jesus was related to through Mary.
Yes.
Which I just think that's beautiful, right?
So in a way, too, you got to think that's God also honoring Nathan.
God honoring Nathan
It's not
the
just
prophet.
David and Bathsheba. It's God honoring Nathan the prophet by letting the Messiah come through the child that was named after him.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Such a cool thing. I think that Nathan was just an awesome guy.
Yeah.
And we can learn a ton from him when we go about approaching people to speak truth in love, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously David and Bathsheba respected him and loved him so much to name their child after him.
Yeah,
I think that's
right.
awesome.
That's right. And so how are you being a Nathan to people in your life, right? That's something to be thinking about is how are you affecting the way that people are interacting with the Lord? How are you, like something personally that I was dealing with this past week as we were preparing for this podcast. I just felt like this compelling calling from the Lord. It was like something weighing on me heavy spiritually. And I just took the time while I was at work and I prayed, hey, God, I haven't had a spiritual conversation in a while. I haven't been able to be a Nathan or someone who's been there for people in a long time. I've just kind of been going through the motions. I was honest. I'm like, Lord, can you give me a spiritual conversation today? Like, let me have a spiritual conversation with someone. And I kid you not, at work, within the next 2 hours, I had 4 spiritual conversations with coworkers.
That's awesome.
I'm not kidding. I hadn't had a spiritual conversation with someone in months just because life, it just caught up with me. I just got busy. And then I think that the Holy Spirit was really weighing on me. It's like, I haven't been on top of that.
Yeah.
And so I prayed for it. I said, Lord, give me spiritual conversations. Not all of them were gospel related.
Yeah.
2 of them were. But two of them weren't. But the thing is I just prayed for spiritual conversations, and God brought that to me.
That's awesome.
And so be praying. How can you be like Nathan, and how can you be that person who is having these conversations, whether it's your coworkers, your family members? Because the thing is, people need to hear tough stuff sometimes, or they just need to hear truth.
Yes.
Whether it's positive or negatively affecting them. Because
absolutely.
the thing is like, we don't want to keep living in a delusion where we're constantly avoiding God's calling for us or what's happening in reality. And the loving thing to do, and what Nathan saw was a loving thing to do, it was to share the truth and to have spiritual conversations and talk about God's will with his best friend, right? And so I just share that as an encouragement to you, to everyone listening. Go out and make this a big deal. Like, pray that God would give you the opportunity to present spiritual conversations. I mean, just recently, Kobe Bryant passed away.
Yeah.
And everybody's talking about it, right?
Yeah, it's a big deal in our culture.
Yeah, people are talking about death. People are talking about like what happens next. Because the thing is people are shocked by this, because it was a shocking death, right?
It was.
Yeah, and so it's so easy right now to take the time to open up with people about the afterlife and talk to them about spiritual matters. Say, hey, what do you think about Kobe Bryant passing away? Like, that's tragic. And, and then hear what their thoughts are and say, have you ever thought about what happens to you after you die? And see how natural that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing.
It's an easy segue to talk about spiritual things. But
It is,
I love what you said, Tyler, but we need to be praying and asking God for the opportunity and for wisdom, because we need to rely on the Holy Spirit in our lives to do what he's asked us to do. You know, there's been so many times I've forced spiritual conversations and it never turns out well.
Yeah.
I want to be directed into what I need to be doing and who I need to be sharing with. And so, dude, I love that story. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We need to take advantage of what's going on in culture, what people are thinking of, to talk about truth with others. So I just love, studying Nathan and seeing the example that he gives us. It is just, he's definitely a guy that we should study more, talk about more, and glean application from in our own lives.
Yeah, this guy is someone who we definitely need to imitate. And so I think this was just a super fitting way to wrap up our series on Unsung Heroes with Nathan. Just a cool guy, someone who we want to reflect. And again, if you stuck with us through this entire series, thank you so much for listening and watching our series on Unsung Heroes, because it's important to hear about these people, these lesser known figures in Scripture who don't get as much recognition as they deserve, because they really made an impact for the Lord and they did a lot of good work. And it's important that we reflect on their legacy that they left behind, and how they still can have an impact on us today.
Yep, definitely. Also, what we're going to be doing for the month of February is we are going to be showing some love to guests that we have on our show, people that we respect, apologists, pastors, that we want you to know about. So make sure you stay tuned. For the whole month of February, we've got guests lined up who are going to be on the show, and you're not going to want to miss it. We're going to have a great time talking with some of these people and showing you and allowing you to understand and know about what they're doing and how you can get involved. So we always want to be showing what other people are doing for the kingdom and elevating them so that we can bring awareness to what they're doing. And man, we're going to learn so much. I'm really looking forward to this next month.
Yes, it's going to be so exciting. And then just all the guests that we're talking to, and the love that we're sharing with each other and communicating about the gospel and apologetics.
Yep.
Just going to be super exciting. So
you
don't want to miss it.
Yep. We also want to, one last time, draw your attention to our bro Matthew's sign at SE Collective. Make sure you go check out secollective.com for all your home furnishing needs, signs, tables, whatever you want. He can make it. So make sure you check him out. Well, hey, thanks for listening so much today to Christ Culture and Coffee. Again, this podcast, this vodcast, this whole thing is about being able to equip Christians to be confident in their faith and to be able to go out and to share their faith with other people. That's what we want to do. So we're glad you're watching, we're glad you're listening, and we hope to be an encouragement to you. Stay tuned for next month as we dive into all of these great interviews we're going to have with some very special guests.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Christ Culture and Coffee. We'll catch you guys next time.